Hello, everybody. Hi, and welcome to the third edition of the Hotel Copywriting Tea Time. So it's great to see you here. Um, if you could just let me know in the chat if you can see me and hear me okay. You can write in the YouTube chat. It'll be a public message as long as the chat is live. But once we go offline, the messages will be deleted. So don't worry about writing in there. So let me just put a quick message in there. Here we go. So let's just give it another second to see if we have a few more people joining. Just always want to make sure that we allow for a little bit of a buffer. Um, but yeah, I think we're looking good. Just wanting to see if one of you could give me a quick heads up whether you can see or hear me all right. Okay. Great. Well, I think then we should just jump right in and get started. I will put my slides on screen here so that you can see that. And then we can jump right in. Okay. Great. I think HN Hotels, that must be you, Mauricio. I think you're back on here with us. That's awesome. Great to see you. Good. Well, yeah, like I said, let's just jump in. I don't want to lose too much time here. So yeah, let's go and start with today's topic. So, welcome once again to our third edition of the Hotel Copywriting Tea Time. Today, we'll talk about how to find and where to find your hotel's best stories, and of course, how to tell them for maximum impact. So, just before we get started, a little quick welcome from my side and a little intro about me. Some of you already know me. My name's Juliana. I used to work for hotels around the world, and today I'm a copywriter for the hospitality industry. So that means I support international hotel brands and hotel tech companies by creating their website content, blog posts, and various other types of written content that they share and that they use for their marketing. And of course, I also create resources for hotels. And if you'd like to see more of those, you can check out my website at this link here. Now, let's quickly go over what we will cover today. We'll start out with a little recap of why storytelling is so important. If you've been here for a few of the other Copy Tea Times, you might actually remember this. So just use this as a chance to kind of see it as a recap and just go over the key points again. If you're new, then this is a really important point to definitely consider. And keep in mind when you're working on your storytelling for your hotel, right? You always want to know why you're actually doing all of this work. Then next, we'll talk about how to make your guest part of your story. Because of course, if you're doing storytelling, you want to do that to engage your guest and draw them in. And the best way to do that is to make them part of your story. And finally, we'll look at where to dig around to really find the great stories that your potential guests will love, that people will reshare, that will get people to book with you, right? And then next, we'll look at a few ways you can tell those stories and integrate them into your online presence so more people get to see them. So let's dive right in then with our first question. Why is storytelling so important? Well, first of all, storytelling, it creates a connection between your customers and your brand. So if you want to think about it in this way, your story, the story you tell about your hotel and your guests is it's where your offer, like the services and the things you provide at your hotel, where all of that intersects with your target audience's needs and desires. So, what do you want? What do you have? What do people want from you? And where do those two things come together? And if you can find a story at that intersection points, then you will help people identify with your property and your offering, and you'll be able to connect with them better. Then your storytelling also adds a soul and a personality to your message. And that's how it increases the perceived value of your offering, which is great because that will make people a bit more inclined to not question your room rates and to be happy to pay them because they feel like they're getting a really great deal out of it, right? And then stories are also they're also valuable, not just from a financial or a monetary perspective, but they're also valuable because they stir up emotions in people. Right? If you have a great engaging story, then you stir up these emotions like excitement for this upcoming trip, or people like be not wanting to wait for it anymore. Like they really want to get going and they're totally looking forward to staying with you. And this is really valuable because it gets more people excited and interested in booking with you, be it right now or maybe when they're a bit further along in their research. And that actually brings me to the next point, because of course, not everybody that finds your hotel and like, gets into your storytelling, not everyone will book immediately, right? Because maybe they're doing some research, maybe they'll come back to it a couple days later and check a few more properties. But if your storytelling really engaged them and stirred up some of these emotions, that makes you a lot more memorable than your competition. Studies have actually shown that storytelling is helps you become 22 times more memorable than if you just give people facts and figures about the size of your rooms and like maybe your check-in check-out times or your location or things like that. So just the fact that you become a lot more memorable through good storytelling is also great because it helps people who maybe saw you once or twice think, oh yeah, I saw this hotel in that city. Maybe, yeah, maybe let me check them out again. I think maybe I'll stay there this time. Okay. So just always keep in mind these points about why storytelling and why this narrative is so powerful to actually attract and keep your target market engaged. Then we'll head on to the main topic of today's session, which is finding your stories and making your guest a part of these stories, right? So I already discussed in, I think it was the Copy TeaTime number 1. We talked about how your story should be about your hero. But now the question is, who is your hero? Like it's your story, it's your website, but the hero is actually your guest because everything you do is about your guest, right? Like you serve them, you welcome them, you want to delight your guests. So just like your service, your story should also be about your guest. So your guest is the hero of this story here. Now, you want to tell the story in a way that highlights, of course, what you do and what you offer, but in a way that focuses on the experiences your guests will have with you and how you respond to their needs and their desires for booking a hotel. So that could be something quite simple, like maybe they really need to be in a place downtown because they have work to do, for example, and the office that they're visiting is close to your property, so that makes your property really attractive. Now, maybe that's not a hugely emotional thing, but it's convenient, right? And seeing that they don't need to get on a long taxi ride, they don't need to take public transport, they can just stay at your place and then go to their work the next day without a huge hassle. That brings you relief if you think about it, right? If you were planning a business trip thinking you're in a strange city that you don't know, and you don't have to deal with all of this stuff, you can just get up, go to your business meeting and be done with it. That makes things really easy, right? So that's the kind of thing that you would want to include in your storytelling. Even if it seems a bit simple or basic, those parts are actually very, very important. Okay, so now that we've focused on the experience and needs of our hero, and we've also worked on fulfilling their desires, like that's more if you're talking about leisure guests, perhaps, right? Like they want the experience of a lifetime, they want to relax after several months of hard work. Here, you really want to focus on these desires and address those and then again, not just rattle off all the things you do and you offer, but how does this offering really address what your guests want? Okay, so we always focus on these needs and our desires rather than just what you offer and putting that out there in kind of like a just a dry list. So, and then if you can bring all of this together, like your guests' needs, your guests' desires, and your offering, then you can you can include your guest in the narrative from the beginning because they'll see on your website or your social media, oh wow, this hotel really gets it. They know how important it is for me to be downtown. They know how much I want this weekend getaway with my partner or this beach holiday to be super relaxing and fun for my whole family. So if you can show in the things that you highlight that you understand your guest and you know exactly what they want and need, people feel like they've come to the right place. And that's a huge step of getting them through the door and getting them to think, hey, yeah, okay, this property, they get me. I'll check them out some more and maybe I'll even book there. And now that we know about all these things that about all these needs and desires and things that we need to include, how does that how does that play into storytelling, right? Like how do we bring those two together? Let's talk about that now. Um, Now, first, we want to look at where we can find these stories that highlight these needs and these desires among your for your guests, right? So we can think about, for example, the best places to look are really your everyday operations, right? So your front office and your rooms department, your food and beverage department, every department that interacts with your guests. That's where your best stories are, right? Like you might be wondering like, oh, maybe my hotel doesn't have any good stories, but trust me, every property does. There's something at every hotel. For some places, it might be a bit easier, a bit more straightforward. Like if you're in a historical building, for example, that is fantastic to build a story around. But even if you're like a modern new build hotel downtown, catering mainly to business travelers, you can still do a lot with storytelling if you just bring in what we just talked about your guests' needs and desires and address those in your content. So now, let's look at how we can go through our front office and our F&B department to find some great stories. Like you can see, I've already highlighted a few points here. So, for example, if you look at your hotel, your front office, your rooms, then a great place to start to look for stories is your hotel's style and your sense of place. So maybe if your hotel is in a historical downtown location, then your property might have some design elements that are inspired by this location, right? Or maybe you're in a historical building yourself and that reflects your surroundings. Or maybe you're this ultra modern new build property. Then that's great as well because you can position yourself as this super high tech, fancy establishment and different target audiences will respond differently to that, of course, but there are people who really love this super fancy modern style. So definitely bring that into how you describe your property. And there you can talk about how you designed the space, maybe how you renovated the space, which artists you worked with. Right? You can introduce them, you can show which artwork was created for your hotel and mention that on your homepage or your about us page, or if you have special artwork or design pieces in your guest rooms, you can include that in your room's description, of course, and say, okay, designed by this architect. We've got artwork or paintings or sculptures by a specific artist. Bring that in to make your room description more than just like, oh yeah, we have this type of bed and we have this type of view and that's it, right? You want to really highlight every little bit that makes you unique. Then another thing is your welcome, right? Like maybe the welcome experience at your property is already something really special. So that could be if your place is super fancy, that you have limousine pickup for your guests from the airport, or maybe you have something like the DoubleTree by Hilton. Every guest that checks in gets a cookie, and that's just become part of their brand. So maybe you have something like that, and you can show that in your photos or in your social media, or even describe that when you talk about the guest experience on your website. And of course, guest stories are also a huge thing. If you have regulars, maybe they would agree to be featured or to have like a short blurb about them, about how they often come back to your property. That's a powerful element of social proof. And it shows other people who come to your website, like, wow, if this person has come back 3, 4, 5 times and they love this and that about the hotel, maybe I should go there as well. Okay, so now that's just some ideas for front office. Now, F&B is also just a huge treasure trove of stories. So you can start off with your team, for example, like feature your head chef and how they create the menu and how they use maybe local ingredients, or maybe some of the recipes are family recipes handed down throughout generations. You've got a whole wealth of stories right there. Maybe your sommelier or your restaurant manager has some interesting stories to share as well. And of course, you can also talk about partnerships. Like, where do you get your produce or your meat, for example? If you work with local partners, local growers, that's something people love reading about. So feature that on your F&B page, maybe have a blog article about that, and talk about that on your social media as well, just to make your property really come alive and show that you're not just some random generic place, but that you actually have this background, like this wealth of stories and things that make your property unique and special. And again, of course, guest stories can also be great in F&B, maybe about someone who celebrated a special event at your property. Um, but yeah, keep in mind, you always need guests' consent, of course, if you're going to write anything about them. Then if you have like a meetings and events department, or maybe a recreation department, a spa, you can apply these same ideas to those departments as well, to kind of mine some more stories and get some more ideas there. Okay, then now that we've found some stories, or that at least you have ideas about where to find your stories, let's just look quickly at some ways that you can implement this at your hotel. Right now, you've found your stories. Now, how do you tell them? Where do you tell them? Okay, so we'll start with an important point is that, again, as I've mentioned before, you want to address your audience's needs and desires. Yes, I keep coming back to that because it's so important. Okay, I'm not repeating myself by accident here. This is very, very important. We always need to keep that at the very front of your mind. So, like I said, you don't want to just be listing facts about things you do and offer, but highlight the benefits. So the things that actually add the true value to your guest stay and make their stay special, memorable, simple, easy, depending on what they're looking for. That's the point that you want to drive home the most. Okay, then what's important next is that you want to make your site easy to navigate. Now, that might not play into the idea of storytelling too much at the first glance, but you want to make it very clear. You want to have a clear structure so that people know where they're going. So maybe they've read something really cool about your F&B. Now they want to learn more about that. Make it easy for them to take the next step. Okay, they read about your restaurant, make it easy to click through to the restaurant page to make a reservation. Maybe they read about your amazing concierge and your beautifully designed rooms. Make it easy for them to click through to the page that gives them a detailed room description, and then click through to your booking engine to make the booking, right? So you want the story to pull through your whole website, kind of like a red thread, and make it easy for people to follow this, right? Like, just guide their experience or guide their visit through your site, and make it simple and quick for them to do what they came to do on your website. Okay, then what else is important is to make your visuals and your texts work together. So say, for example, you have your homepage, and on your homepage, you're introducing your property, then you talk a bit about your rooms, your F&B, then maybe your spa. And in this F&B section, for example, you're introducing your chef and saying this chef will be taking care of all of your culinary desires while you're at the property. And for your rooms, you've highlighted the design and the style and the convenience and the comfy bed, for example. Now, when you talk about your room, you want to have a picture that conveys this idea that you've just created of the room. If you talk about like a really cozy and warm room, you want that to be reflected in the photo, right? Like this nice warm yellow light, you see the fluffy pillows and cushions, and it just looks like the feel of the photo is like this warm, comfy, fuzzy feeling, right? But if you're talking about like a sleek and modern style, obviously your photo should be reflecting that as well. The same goes for F&B. If you're talking about your friendly, fun chef, then maybe have a fun photo of your chef. Or if you're talking about your Michelin star cuisine, have a photo of this very elegant food. So what I'm saying is you always want to try to bring your visuals and your texts together to create this consistent experience so people really know um, that they really know what they're getting into, right? And you work consistently so that it's not like this jarring thing where the two don't relate and people are like, wait, this is like really fun and uh, silly looking photo maybe, and then here the text is kind of serious, so it makes it gives it kind of a weird jarring feeling where people don't really know what you're going on about. So just make sure those two always go hand in hand. Okay. And then finally, if you really want to step it up and practice visual storytelling, then I encourage you to maybe do a brand or an intro video about your hotel, or what is also really great, a 360-degree virtual tour of your public spaces, maybe some of your rooms, to give people like this really immersive feeling of what it's like to be at your hotel. Then our next part, now that we've talked about implementing our storytelling on the website, let's look at social media. So social media is a very, very powerful storytelling tool. For one thing, people like just generally engaging with social media, like they're on there anyway, like following their friends or some influencers or whatever. And so if you can be on social media as well, it's a great place for them to just, or for you to stay in touch with them in a casual way, kind of pop up in their feed every once in a while. And it's a great chance to just tell your story in a casual way so that guests can just touch on it here and there and just see you every once in a while so that you can stay in their mind. Then it's also a fantastic tool to give behind the scenes insights, right? So on your website, you want, of course, everything to look polished and professional and more or less perfect, right? But on social media, you can post things that are a bit more like casual, a bit less formal, if you will. And you can use posts, you can use stories, for example, on Instagram, to introduce your team, right? Not just your management, but your line staff as well, and then feature different departments, right? Like interview your bartender and let them show how they make the favorite cocktail of or the cocktail of the month, or maybe follow one of your chefs around and see how they receive the produce, how they prepare something, how they put together a dish and plate it. Like these behind the scenes are getting so popular among people, and they just make you a lot more approachable um, and feel more real for people. So if you can include a few things like that on a regular basis, that would be a fantastic way to tell your hotel story. And finally, one thing is important as well. It's to choose your channel and the content you share depending on your target market. So if you're targeting a very, very young audience, then TikTok, for example, is great. Like these fast-paced short videos are fun, and like the younger generation, they really enjoy that. And of course, there's also Instagram. But then if you're going for an older generation, you might also look at social media sites like Facebook, for example, right? So you really want to check who are you trying to reach with your social media content, and then target or adjust the content you're creating to this target audience, right? Like for the older generation, maybe TikTok videos aren't exactly the best thing, is what I'm getting at. So really think about who you're trying to target, what are they interested in, and then create content based on that so that your efforts and your investment of time and money into this content actually go further and get you the great results. Okay, that already brings me to our recap. I see we went over time a little bit here, so let's make this really quick. So first we talked about why is storytelling important. Number one, because we create a connection with the target market, because we become more memorable and stay in people's minds when they want to book. Then we want to make our guest part of the journey, part of the narrative from the very beginning. And we do that by making all of the stories we tell about the guest and how we fulfill their needs and desires at our hotel. Then we talked about where to find our best stories. We started with front office and the hotel itself, F&B, your recreations, your meetings and events. Like talk to your staff, get stories from them. Like they know what's happening at your hotel, so check with them which stories would be fun to tell and highlight. And then finally, we spoke about implementation, like getting your story onto your website, onto the different sub pages for your rooms, your F&B, your various departments, and of course, giving those fun behind the scenes insights into your social media. So yeah, from my side, that is a wrap right now. Oops, I jumped ahead a bit much here. Right, so we are done with the presentation for now. So do let me know if you have any questions for me. I mean, I'm here and happy to answer any questions you have about storytelling, about how to really tie it into your website or maybe your social media, and anything else copywriting related. I will just wait here for a moment, just in case any questions come up, but I don't see any coming in right now. Okay, awesome. Well, I will take that as a good sign that we've gone through everything properly and you have a better idea of where to find your stories and how to use them to promote and market your website. And thank you. I see that Marcia is saying it was a great presentation. Thank you. Awesome. Well, I'm so happy you liked it. And like I said, if there's anything else, you can all feel free to send me an email. Let me know if you have any more questions about this topic. And yeah, then we'll call it a day for now. And I will see you in another month for the next Hotel Copywriting Tea Time. Okay, bye.